Okay, this is calling to order the meeting of the Master Plan Implementation Committee for the meeting of May 11th. And pursuant to Governor Baker's orders of March 12th and March 15th, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, as well as imposing limitations on people's gathering, as well as the closure of town hall. This meeting is being conducted via remote participation via Zoom, and it is being recorded. And for the record, we have Christina Madsen, Francine Tishman, Brittany Taylor on the phone at the moment, Cindy Palmer, Jim Sini, Chris Fowles, and Ken Comia from PVPC. So I think that may be all that we will get tonight. Margaret sent her apologies. She's most likely on another Zoom call to the West Coast. And then George chimed in saying that he's been really busy, but he's hoping to join us next meeting. So that'll be good to have him join back around with us too. So good. So with that in mind, I'm going to see if there's any public out there for any public comments. I don't see anybody waiting. So let's assume we don't have any public comments. And let's jump to the minutes of the last meeting, which I can put up, I hope. Let's see, hold on. Hold on 2 seconds here. Nope. Okay, here's the minutes. Hopefully you can see them. Are they big enough to see?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So these are the minutes of the draft minutes from the April 27th meeting. If anybody had any thoughts or comments about any of those, I'll just scroll down lightly here.
So Chris, I have one question.
Yeah.
You read the same Governor Baker orders last time. Do you want them inserted?
Yeah, I think it's good to have it as a prelude.
Oh, it's at the top. Oh,
it's there. It's minutes. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so it's there.
No, I think it's good to have it in the minutes, just because that way, 5 years from now, when somebody's looking for something, they'll have no clue what we did or why. So
sounds good.
This should at least be there for that amount. Yeah. Okay. So we just it's not lots and lots of detail, but it was a pretty detailed meeting in many ways. We had a good discussion, I think. Does anybody have any adjustments to the minutes, or can we have a motion to approve them?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
All right.
I'll second.
All right. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Tishman, aye.
Madsen, aye.
Palmer, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Fowles, aye.
Jim, you're muted.
Jim? I'm gonna there you go.
Okay.
Unmute you.
I needed to get the screen back to unmute. Hi.
Okay. All right. Well, was that an aye?
Got some noise in the background. So
Okay. Well, we'll take that as the minutes were unanimously approved here. So good. Okay. Well, we're going to continue on with our challenge here. Hey, Brittany. Now we see you. Thanks. So what I'm going to do is put up the screen. I sent out the attempted revised survey based on our comments and our thoughts last week. And thank you, Ken, so much for helping format that, because it still needs formatting, but that was a huge improvement over what I had, because it still is crazy with all those buttons and all those spaces to answer. So Ken knows a whole lot more about that. So that was a lot better. So let me put up that. And we'll take a look at that. And what I had done is I attached, I think Cindy did with the minutes, another one called questionable questions. And that was a page of stuff that we had kind of pushed aside. So we'll see if we can take a look at things and, oops, wrong one, hold on. See if we can see what we need to see here. Okay, so this was, okay, so this was after this is our sort of what we accepted last meeting, with a bit of editing still, but I've got comments in from Francine and from Cindy, which I've inserted into this version. So I think we can kind of go down through this relatively quickly, and then we'll jump over to the other portion that was the questions that got jumped aside to see if any of those need to come back in. Okay, and hopefully we can make this, let's see if we can keep this part at like no more than 45 minutes-ish, and then we'll have a good half an hour to talk about how we would even administer this kind of a survey. I think that was our debate last week of, are we doing this via household? Are we doing it via members of the household? And if so, how do we do that when you're, if we had to do a mailing? So lots of discussion there that we can still have. So just running down through this. So how many total years have you been a resident? I think we all agreed with that one. Homeowner, renter, and dependent. I was wondering if, I know Cindy, you defined dependent last time. Does anybody think that that needs to be defined anymore? Is that clear to, I know Cindy, you used the example, right, of Ted being the dependent, right? So not a dependent child, but somebody who's not the actual homeowner. Cindy, did I lose you?
Yeah, I didn't see her.
Is she there? No?
No.
Yeah, not again. Oh dear. Okay.
There. You hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, Jim. Is Cindy has disappeared on us again?
Yeah.
What happened to Cindy?
I don't know. She had her internet fixed, I thought. She said she did.
Yeah. Yeah, she does.
Well, maybe she'll be back on in a second here, hopefully. Did anybody else have a thought? I know, remember how she defined that last time? Do you think we need to, yeah, she said she was bumped out. She's going to keep on trying to get back in. So,
Okay.
do we need to make that clearer? Or I mean, if I ever saw that for the first time, I would think a dependent child.
Yeah, I would think so.
I
That's
wouldn't
what I would think
know,
as well.
huh?
That's what I would think as well. I was
Yeah.
thinking too, adult children still living at home because we're too poor.
Right.
Can you ask the question, if you are the respondent, are
Yeah.
you the homeowner, tenant, renter, dependent? Does that get around some of it? No.
Well, and see, that's where we're going to get into issues, right? In terms of figuring out how to actually give the instructions to fill this out. Again, whether it's per household and therefore just one person. But I think we talked last week that we'd really have, that was going to cut a lot of people short, and people in the same household could have very different opinions.
Right.
That we'd
How about just put household member?
household member. Okay, maybe that's a thought. Something like that, because I know Cindy's, situation was a different way of defining dependent that I had not heard of before. So maybe when she comes back on, if she gets on, we'll go back to that.
Okay.
I'll just
Okay.
put that. I'm gonna just put this right here so I don't forget it. Okay. All right. To which gender do you most identify? And thanks, Ken. This was the language that Ken had suggested based on other surveys that he has seen and been involved with. So I think this looks a whole lot better than what we had before. Does
Yes.
anybody have any thoughts on that one?
No, but thank you for that. That solves, that crosses into other areas, this language that we need to have.
Yeah. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay. And age-wise, we just put the under 19. We had talked about 16 to 19, and then we just left it at under 19. Hopefully we might have a couple of high schoolers that would respond. We'll see. And then number 5 is actually Brittany's question, her suggestion, which I thought was a good one. So check all that apply. So you could check more than one here. So the single homeowner with rooms rented out, couple with children, single parent, parent with adults at home. Now we should probably have, in case that, or multi-generational, 3 generations living together. So that could be like if there was a 19-year-old that was answering, right? That 19-year-old might be able to click the multi-generational, or should we have one more choice here? But this is a household though, so yeah, be sure what we're asking here, describing the household, so not the person answering. So that's, yeah, this looks good to me. Anybody think about that?
Yeah, that's
Well,
fine.
there's no place for just 2 adults.
Couple of children, single homeowner rooms are at.
Oh yeah.
Oh, well, couple, oh, it's okay. couple with children, couple, hang on,
Without children,
couple with children, another couple without children.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should put that in.
Or just shared household.
That too.
Cindy, you back?
I'm back, sorry.
Okay, good.
Bought a new router and everything. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. All right, we'll get this figured out later here, as usual. So we were just adding the idea of under question number 5, shared household, because we have single parent, couple with children, etc., but we don't have just a couple without necessarily children here. So we were trying to figure that out. We'll just add this in for now.
You want couple with pets, without pets?
Yeah, really. No, we're not going to get into all that. We could all do that, right? So Cindy, back up just a second on the number 2, the one that you had suggested last week of adding the word dependent in there.
Yeah,
Okay, and we were wondering in terms of defining that, because in somebody's initial thinking would maybe be dependent as in dependent child. So dependent, teenager or whatever that might be answering this. But I know you had defined it differently given your own situation, but I'm not sure how many people would recognize
this
that.
is good. This is good. So you change it to household member?
It was a suggestion, so
I like it. I
yeah,
think it's good. Yeah,
instead of dependent.
yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, moving on. So I think which describes the household. I think that's pretty good. And that was better than what we had.
Actually, I have a comment on
Yep.
Are we yeah, on number 5 still.
Uh-huh.
So what if you're an adult, maybe just out of college, maybe not, but still at home, but you're not 3 generations, it's just 2. So why not just leave it multi-generational and take out the 3+ generations? I don't.
Okay,
Yeah,
good point. Yep, how's that? That's a good point. Yep, it doesn't have to be 3 generations for sure. Okay, valid. Okay, retired, yes or no? And then, do you work in town, yes or no? And then we added this one last time about, do you telework from your residence? We were debating on that one, but we threw it in there as we left.
I mean, I mean, there will be people who telework as part of their job, part-time, but not full-time for their employment. Is that going to skew the results? Because today, almost everyone does, depending upon their job for them, or some portion of their job.
It's not just teleworking either. There are many people who, like myself, who just work from the property.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But wasn't there a purpose in that telework question, which we were trying to gauge the need for infrastructure for high speed? Or I think that was so. Regardless of whether it's full or part-time or.
Right.
Thank you.
We were trying to
Okay.
gauge that exactly, and so that may be still something that we have to. Maybe I'll just highlight it just so we can see if that's in the right place. Because I think we were talking, and Jim, you brought it up of, suppose you just had a job stuffing envelopes. You didn't need necessarily internet. You didn't, it wasn't anything about commuting or anything like that. You were working from home, but it wasn't necessarily where you needed any particular amenities.
Right.
Whereas this idea would be that you were maybe dependent on some better broadband or something like that. And then we did have the question of, do you work? I think we had, do you work at home? And that's where it came into, what are we trying to get out of the idea of whether there's a home-based business or not? And Cindy, I think, brought up the question of there's many businesses in town that are actually working from home, but are not zoned correctly for that. Not that we would do anything about it, but it just brought up a lot of different comments last meeting, and we were still trying to figure out, well, what is it we want to get for an answer? What are we trying to gather for data here? So that may still be a little bit of a question. If anybody has any thoughts right now, otherwise I'll just keep on moving, I'll just highlight it for the moment, but how far away is your one-way commute to work? Less than 10, 10 to 20, more than 20. And this was talking about just this notion of, are we still a bedroom community? What impact might this have on the roads, the quality of roads, whatever that people expect in town?
Mhm.
Anybody have any thoughts about that?
I think we should leave it like that.
Okay for now. All right. Number 9, I had put on the off list by mistake, and I put it back in here. So we had talked about having the school information in here, and somehow I slid it off to the other page. So I put it back in here. And we had children at William E. Norris, Hampshire Regional, a vocational school, high school, private school, school of choice, homeschooled, charter school, or not applicable. So everybody agree that we need the schooling one in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Yes.
think if we leave that one in there, it's not clear to me how this should be answered.
Mhm.
If I'm a parent, let's say, with kids at William Norris School, do I put a checkbox
Yeah.
there, or do I put a number of kids at William Norris School?
Yeah.
So what are they looking for there? Do we want the actual number? And if I'm answering this and I'm a student at Hampshire Regional, do I check it, or do I put a little number 1 next to
Yeah.
Hampshire for myself?
Do you attend or have children in? So yeah, maybe the question's a 2-part question, right?
Or else put a disclaimer or a modifier, like Jim is suggesting. Do you have children in, and then parentheses, number of children? No? Is that confusing?
Or we could just do the check all that. Do we care how many kids necessarily? I don't know that we do,
Probably not.
but we could do a check all that apply, right?
Yes, check all that apply.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. If you're not looking for a number of students, then you don't need to ask. You're right. We don't need to specify that. We just
Right.
want to
Okay.
know where.
We just want to know what schools rather than number of kids, I think. But-
There is an issue.
Yep.
Because there's at least a small possibility, hopefully it won't happen, the kids are not going to be back in school in the fall.
Well, true.
That they're going to be theoretically homeschooled, not really, but yes, really. So why don't we say, are you enrolled in or have children in?
Yes.
It's not attend, it's enrolled in.
Yeah.
Really good point.
My
And
daughter-in-law.
I'm curious what Ken says here, because I hate, Ken, you're used to collecting data, but here we are asking this question number 9. Is there anything gained from knowing number of students at the school? It's like we're saying we don't really need to know the number, but what might be gained from knowing how many kids are? We know the number of kids at Norris, so maybe nothing.
Yeah, I think for purposes of making it as easily answerable, I don't know if you need the number per se, because you can get that data from the school district. And again, this will eventually be made into some sort of electronic format too, right?
Yeah.
There'll be the ability for the person to do this electronically, which those options wouldn't necessarily, offer numbering there. If the person receiving the paper survey, I think this definitely clears it up. Check all that apply. You're saying that that's the action check.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think that a number is necessary for purposes of this, unless there was some other reason why you wanted to collect that.
Yeah, I can't see a need for it myself. I think we can get the stats from the schools in terms of the number of kids and so forth. And besides, again, if we're gonna, try and do some of this by mailing and, trying to sit there and add up how many kids per everybody's answer, that would be a nightmare. Trying to, collate the data, even if it came in, let alone what we would want it for. So I'm fine with this.
Yeah, I agree. My data gathering impulse to never walk away from data is what prompted that. But
Well, that's that's why we'll have Ken shout out whenever we're going off path here, because he knows better what should be, phrased in a certain way, perhaps. So, okay, number 10. What should we use as the model for the way Southampton should grow and look by 2040? Choose all that apply. And remember, this is the one where we had in the past that had the towns in parentheses, and we decided to take the sample town names out to not, influence anybody. And we had left them basically the way they were, except this first one was keep it the way it is now with some agriculture and protection of open space. And in lieu of that, basically, Cindy suggested this, a rural residential community as it is now that balances residential growth with open space conservation to protect the environment, improve the quality of life of the citizens, and preserve the critical elements of the local heritage, culture, and economy. So
Here's the problem I have with that.
Yep.
It's when you just look at that, what's in green, separate from the other answers. It's leading. It's a leading answer.
It is a leading answer.
It is?
You're really prompting the person to check that one.
You
And
bet.
I don't think that's what we want to do.
Okay,
So-
suggestions for how to reword it? Do you want to do maybe just with open space conservation and not have this part? Would this part alone help us? Let me just do this.
Yeah.
Rural residential community as it is now that balances residential growth with open space conservation, period.
Yep.
I'm good with that too.
Yeah, I think that captures what
Cindy?
you wanted to capture.
Yeah, I took the wording right out of the federal EPA guidelines for open space. But you're right, it is leading. And I did not think we had an option that we could put up with the previous options that were drafted from our last meeting. I did not feel we had an option which really had enough teeth in it, because I think there's a lot of people that really want to have a rural residential community that balances residential growth with open space. I'm fine with taking out the rest of it.
Okay.
Cindy, I thought that the open space section of this needed some more precision.
Yeah, I did that too,
yeah,
Christine.
yeah,
And
give me a
so
clue.
maybe that kind of, that kind of information or questioning can go into that. I think this shorter version is more in keeping with the other options here in this particular question.
Okay.
Okay,
Now,
fine.
just one question here. I'm fine with that. Is this really a choose all that apply answer though? Or is it just choose one?
I think it's choose one.
Yeah.
Choose one, too.
I think it's choose one, but to me they read so close. It's hard to differentiate.
I would suggest that number 2 and 3 options seem like they're communicating the same thing.
So
I
maybe
mean,
get rid
you can maybe say commercial centers.
get rid of 2 maybe?
Yeah, because number 1 suggests that you want Southampton to remain as it is. And then 2 suggests, opening up areas where commerce and commercial can come in.
Okay. Perfect. All right. All right. I like it. We're doing good. Let's go. All right. Number 11. Knowing that the commercial and residential tax rates will likely remain the same, how important is it to you to encourage new commercial development in town? Why did we have a rank order with 5 being very important? I don't know. Is that the kind of answer we should ask for here? Or is it a choose one?
I would say choose one.
Choose one of those, yeah.
Maybe that might have gotten misplaced out of
Yeah.
something else, probably. Wouldn't doubt it.
I think there's also an assumption here. We know from history and being on this panel and doing this research why the residential and commercial tax rates are likely to stay the same. But before I got involved in this, that was always one of my questions. And I think most of the citizens are going to ask that. They're going to read this question. They're going to be frustrated. Why are they staying the same? I want commercial and I want to charge them more so we can pay less taxes. So something in there to say, knowing that the commercial and residential tax rates will likely remain the same because surrounding towns do that, and history shows we can't, it starts to get a little wordy, but if you don't
Yeah.
explain it, you're just going to
Yeah.
get people who are not going to answer it.
Right.
There
I'm gonna
needs
do
to
a
be some
because-
explanation as to why.
Yeah, good point. I'm going to just do because XXX right now.
Yeah, just surrounding towns and history. Something to justify why you're taking the leap that they're going to remain the same.
Yeah, we can actually get it probably from Martha at the assessor's office because that came up when we were looking at the tax rates coming up for the year. So she's got some language I know that she's used in the past too that we could maybe apply. Good. Okay. Now, this is a section where I tried to combine things into some sort of categories, and I did my best here. But as I look at this, what I want us to think about is keeping these headings more like the titles of the chapters. So I don't know if this is maybe land use rather than zoning and bylaws, for example, but let's just take a look at it. We've got to figure out this new stuff here, the population increase. Francine, you gave me the 6150, but this.
I did those calculations.
Oh, you did? Okay. So
Yeah.
this is true. This is true then.
So wait, that was given by Francine, 6150?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I got from the town clerk.
Oh, that's more appropriate then, because
it was 6,200 before. I mean, we're
Okay.
talking
Okay.
negligible amount.
Okay. So this is basically okay then. That part is okay. So that gets that up to date. Okay. So then this is where the scale of 1 to 5. And so.
Wait a second, back up.
Yep.
I pulled out the zoning bylaws, and I don't think that statement requires approximately 1 or more acres is entirely correct. Wait a second.
Which statement? Where?
At the end of that paragraph that you're,
Oh,
at the preface paragraph of 12. Wait a sec, where did I put them?
I think it's all about frontage, not necessarily acreage.
No, it's both.
No, it's acreage
It's
too.
60,000 square feet. And depending on the how it's zoned, the frontage is different.
So here's what I don't know, I'm holding them up right now. Can you see?
no. I'm not seeing you. Can anybody else see you? Hold on.
No,
No, I've got I can't see you with the screen shared, Cindy. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. I will read it to you. There's only one of the zoning districts, residential zoning districts, that is greater than an acre. Because I have an acre being approximately 43,500 square feet. 2 of our districts are less than that for total square acreage. It's only residential rural that is 60,000.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so that's why I'm not real crazy about that one statement.
Yeah.
It says in most areas. Now, that's interesting because the vast majority of the acreage in the town is residential rural. So in some ways you could read it that way, but we know we've had questions come up about size of acre. Recently I came before the planning board and people getting unhappy with the kind of acreage that we talk about. It's already in the bylaws.
Okay. So
So
do we want to say a minimum of whatever it is, or?
why do we have to say it? Can we leave that statement out?
Because people may not know anything that you just said in terms of the size of lots.
Well, then we
Do they
could
need to know?
say current residential zoning in the residential rural districts is greater than 1 acre. Or we could be very specific and say all 3 of them, all 3 of the actual required square feet.
well, then people are going to get, well, do I live in a residential rural district? Do I, some people aren't going to know the answer to that.
Right.
I think just
Maybe we
leave
don't
it
have
out.
this at all.
Yeah,
Leave it out altogether?
yeah, I would.
I would too. How does it read? Let's look at the questions.
Yeah, let's look at the questions and just see. So, okay, so we want to have them rate these 1 to 5. So they strongly oppose or strongly support. So continue current policies that allow growth of single-family homes on 1-acre lots in undeveloped areas.
Well, it's true. The majority of undeveloped areas are residential rural. So,
But if it's already the current policy on 1 acre, that answers it, according to the way this is phrased.
it's actually more than an acre is required, 60,000.
Yeah,
Square feet.
43.5 is an acre. So if 60,000 is required for residential rural, is that what you're saying?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
So what do we have? Three residential zoning areas, or?
We have 3 residential zoning areas. Maybe don't use the phrase acre. Use actual square feet, which is the way it reads in the zoning bylaws. So go
People
to
aren't going to know what that is, though. They're not, and they're not gonna look it up. You could just do 1+ acre or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's.
do that. Okay.
Mhm.
So give me some wording.
In
I
that
think we're-
first 1 through 5,
We're not looking at that sentence. We're looking at the first question, Chris.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
right. So where it says 1 acre, just 1+ acre,
That's good.
or 1 1/3, whatever it actually is. But 1+ is probably fine.
Yeah.
Because again, we're trying to get a sense of what people want and go. I'm afraid that we're going to get bogged down in the specifics that are going to confuse people, and they're going to just throw this thing out.
Yeah.
They know it's not so much about where they live, although that's important, but as they drive around town, what's the feeling?
Okay.
I believe, anyway, that's just my opinion. You know, it's the feeling they get when they drive around, and what do they see being developed? And so do they want more of this, less of this, or they want something different?
Okay. So one hyphen plus, does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Not hyphen, just 1+.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. I see how you have it. That's good. That's good. Yeah.
All right. How about second one? Adopt cluster development provisions requiring homes in sensitive natural resource areas to be built closer together so that remaining land can be protected as open space. Concentrate residential development near the village center while preserving outlying areas.
So if we go back up to the one where houses are closer together, so you have more open space,
Yeah.
does that still meet the requirement of the 1+ acre lot? Or are you waiving it and saying that cluster development could be less than? I mean, a person reading it might interpret it that way.
No, I think the point of cluster development is so that the lot size is more well, it can require the same number of acres, I believe. Ken, do you know this? It can require the same number of acres, but the houses are clustered so that each house isn't spread out and allows for more open space.
Yeah, you're getting around having, it's basically a process of which you would get a special permit, and the planning board would allow you to create more dense development, opening and preserving the resources, the natural resources of that particular lot. You do require, there's usually a required minimum acreage or minimum square footage that you need in order to develop those. But you're right, Christina, that your typical zoning wouldn't necessarily be applicable in this type of development.
Okay.
Right, but so again, the whole purpose of this question, if we take the 1 acre phrase out of the introductory paragraph, so it's not, the whole thing isn't dependent on that, then each of these is independent of the other, and you're ranking them. So I don't think the first option here with the 1 through 5 ranking sets up the rest of them. They're independent. Your ranking, you might strongly support the first option, current policies, and strongly oppose adopt a cluster development. And
Yeah.
that communicates a message.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got rid of the 1 acre in the intro up here, so that's gone. Okay. All right, let's keep on going then. Concentrate residential development near the village center while preserving outlying areas.
I would ask the question is, where is the developable land around the village center?
Yeah, good question. If I think of downtown area, I mean, where is there any land to be developed right in the center there?
Well, I guess it's how you define village center. Some might say, you know, the old part of town where the Congregational Church is and the firehouse, but I might say the village center is near where the Dunkin' Donuts is.
But where's the land there?
Well, there's the land that actually went to town. Didn't it go through a hearing? But then the developer withdrew. But there was the land by the horse farm. There's the land across from Cumberland Farms, which was is in a certain status right now. But so there's land in those areas.
But
Do we want, instead of saying village center, do we want to say closer to Route 10?
Could along College Highway.
Mhm.
Yeah, along College Highway?
Yeah,
I'll just put Route 10 for now. How's that?
Can
yeah,
you,
because that could take you all the way down towards the Westfield line.
Good.
Yeah.
could you highlight that as to be reviewed again later? Just because I think we should chew on this a little tiny bit.
Yep, that's fine. Okay. Allow higher density housing types. Homes on smaller lots, duplexes, townhomes in selected smart growth locations. So my question here would be, what are the smart growth locations? So I don't know if we can just take out smart growth or.
This is where I want Ken to weigh in. What do you think about this one?
Most people will not know what smart growth locations are.
Yeah.
I think, you know, the question captures whether or not the town really wants to explore higher density housing types in general. And I think it gives a good example of what those types of housing are, because you wouldn't be able to find those in a rural residential zoning district.
Should we just remove everything after the second part?
I don't know if you really need to, you know, offer locations. You know, I think they may be able to understand where possibly those locations could be, but you don't need to tell them that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's necessary in selected smart growth locations.
If I just took out smart growth, because.
Or even selected locations.
Yeah.
I agree with Ken.
I think smart growth is addressed in the master plan, but I don't know that we have any identified smart growth areas established. Do you know that, Ken? Or
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So I think just to get rid of that smart growth.
Yeah, and I mean,
phrase.
It's what they call 40R districts, and I don't think the town has any of them.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. So then we don't even need to put in selected locations, just allow the possibility for higher density housing types?
Well, no, because then that could be throughout town.
Could be what?
Right?
Could be.
It could be throughout town. I would opt for in selected locations so that it's not saying that you just want blanket development.
Well, it's not saying that. It's saying we want higher density housing types.
Yeah, but that could mean that you want it allowed everywhere.
Yes.
Oh, so you're thinking that that should be an option.
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's,
So I have a question for Ken
Okay.
about this one. So Ken, one of the things that I understand from people on the planning board, the engineering types, is that the limitation is that you have to have enough space for the adequate septic tank. So if you have a higher density housing type, a duplex, a townhouse, et cetera, you have to have a higher amount of septic system.
Yeah.
That's correct. I would say though, there are probably ways to get around that if what are they called? My gosh. And it's usually for commercial type development.
Like mounds?
What are they called?
Whatever they have at Southampton Meadows to handle that kind of volume,
Yeah, there are technical ways to not require for more dense development, like where you would have maybe in the village center where you have the restaurant. Do they have a septic tank? Oh, what the one that was next to the Dunkin' Donuts that you guys had the zoning map amendment?
You mean OPA, formerly OPA? Yeah, hasn't that had an issue though? That's had major septic issues.
Right, it has inadequate septic.
And that was a grandfathered restaurant back to whatever, at least the 30s, 40s, am I right?
yeah.
So
Well, let's leave this as is. We'll come back to a couple of these things. I'll keep selected locations in yellow just so we can come back and take a look at that part again. We took out
Okay.
the smart growth, which I think is important because that didn't really define anything that we have in place. All right, how about this is a choice. So this is what it was: create larger minimum lot sizes, 2 or more acres per unit to preserve rural character and limit residential growth. Cindy's suggestion right here is just a little bit of a modification of that. So this is in rural residential and rural neighborhood zoning districts. So she clarified that to protect open space added in there as well. So this is just a revision of this wording right up here. So if we look at Cindy's, what do we think about her suggestions here? I'm going to get rid of this one right up here because that's basically, it's all there. She's just added a few more things in green here.
Again, we're talking about people who don't know anything about zoning. I think the simpler you can state something, the easier it's going to be to elicit a response.
Yeah, I think the original, I agree with Francine, the original communicates the same thing.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Do you want to add in protect open space here?
I think that's implied if you have larger lots and rural character. That protects your open space. Because larger lots doesn't necessarily protect open space. It just protects a rural character or a rural look, but it's not necessarily open space. Open space is like, with the town, in my mind anyway, where the town purchased, for the hiking trails and whatnot. Larger lots and a rural look is not open space. It's rural. They're different in my mind.
Okay. Okay. Do we want to say create larger minimum lot sizes in certain zoning districts, or just not mention that at all?
I don't think we mention it at all because it's clearly, it's not gonna work in, along most of College Highway.
Okay. Brittany, any thoughts, or Christina, anybody?
I agree with keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with the original, actually.
Okay.
Cindy, we're going to take it out, okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Keeping on, zone some areas for ag and low density uses only, 5 or more acres. So again, these are not either or. These are just having them indicate on the buttons here what they really think is important. Purchase and protect as much open space as possible from development as possible. Purchase and protect. Oh yeah, from development. Okay, got it.
Was that
yeah.
in the original questionnaire?
Yep. This is all the same.
Okay.
It was all there. Yep. Establish more restrictive sign guidelines. Greater restrictions on size and lighting. Cluster commercial development at major intersections. And then this is the one we talked about a little bit last time, just in neighborhood commercial centers. We weren't sure, I think, what the neighborhood commercial centers were, if that made any sense.
This seems redundant.
Well, and in terms of if you think of, well, how do we define, it's not like we're divided into precincts or districts per se. So even different neighborhoods, I mean, there aren't that many commercial places except along Route 10, or am I not thinking about this right?
I think that's true. Maybe over, is it County Road?
Yeah, the Ponds area.
County and Pequot area, maybe.
Yeah, that may be another one, but there really aren't, as to my knowledge, neighborhood commercial centers that exist.
Can we take this one out altogether?
I vote for that.
I think so.
Take it out. Yeah.
Confusing.
Okay. I will try to do that without killing something here. Oh, magic. Okay, now what? Okay, who knows? Well, anyway, we'll leave a space. Okay, almost here. Establish standards for commercial developments that regulate environmental impact, safety, and design. Do we not have standards?
Yes, we do.
So again, is this a?
This implies that we don't.
Yeah.
That's how I would read it too. What do you think?
Take it out.
Take it out.
Okay,
Are you auto-saving, Chris?
I am.
Okay.
Oops. Okay, let me get out of here. Come on. Okay, establish. Now this one, I'm going to make a little break here so I can read it. Establish standards for large residential developments, 4+ unit subdivisions to regulate. Okay. So again,
That kind of alludes to the open space and cluster zoning that you talk about up at the top.
Do you think it's redundant, Ken?
Well, I mean,
is this giving us any additional or more defined information than what's being asked?
it's asking, I think that's just asking whether or not the town wants to have subdivision development, possibly. I think it's asking the same with the focus on regulating environmental impact, safety, and design. I think that is akin to open space residential development cluster zoning that you already ask in the top. I think it's just another way for what you were exploring up there. Yeah, adopt cluster development. It's just another way.
Yeah.
Seems redundant to me.
So
Yeah.
let's take it out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just me. Anyone else?
I say take it out.
Okay. If I'm not hearing, I'm going to take it out.
Yep. Take it out.
All right. How
So,
about-
so Chris, just a quick comment about the format of this.
Yep.
The radio buttons that you of the circles, it's in a chart format, so you can delete rows,
Okay.
and you can see on the left of your screen the margins there. You'll see the size of each row. So, that's just for future.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I won't mess with it now. Okay. How about this one? Establish design standards for developments in the village center. And this, again, I would think of downtown, like by the church and library area, to create traditional village with walkable mixed-use residential commercial districts.
Right, but for me, this also applies, up by Cumberland Farms too.
Uh-huh.
Well, perhaps more so because again, where could there be developments in the village center if it's
Yeah.
the old center? There just
So-
isn't that area.
So
Unless they
is the problem,
converted existing properties,
Right.
rezoned it.
so is this the problem by using the word in the village center? Is that our problem?
Hmm.
If we just said for developments, for new developments or something, and not say in the village center?
For new developments with a walkable mixed use, yeah. Yeah,
Because-
yeah. And take out in the village center to create a traditional village. Yeah,
So maybe for new developments, maybe
yeah.
to create a traditional village. How's that?
No,
No?
I would take out to create a traditional village
Oh, wait a minute. New developments. Oh, sorry.
with a walkable mixed use, yeah.
Thought I took that out. So establish standards for new developments with a walkable mixed use. Doesn't sound right here somehow.
Mhm.
Ken, what do we need here? Because aren't we looking essentially to try to develop a mixed use district?
Right.
How do we want to say this?
Establish that for new developments for
With a walkable mixed use.
Well, you have an existing district that you may want to have mixed uses in the village center. So,
so don't put new.
Don't even put developments. Establish design standards for a mixed use
How about
district.
for a walkable mixed use district? How's that? Is
Yes, yep.
Yeah,
that better?
I
yeah.
like it.
Establish design standards for a walkable mixed use residential and commercial district. How's that?
Mhm.
Isn't that the way, kind of the wave of the future, what we're looking for in
Right.
towns? Yeah.
Okay. Yep. All right. Limit development beyond the capacity of our water supply.
Well, that's now.
So,
We're already buying it from another town.
so something's again worded a little bit strange there, right?
The way it's worded, limit development beyond the capacity of our water.
How about not to exceed?
Right, not to exceed the capacity of our water supply makes more sense to me.
Christina, what do you think?
Or to not exceed.
Or yeah,
Right,
yeah.
to not exceed.
Rather than
But
beyond.
Cindy's point is right that we already are exceeding it, but it's still, it gets to, it's the essence of the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To not exceed the capacity of our water supply. Okay.
Well,
Encourage.
wait
Yep.
a second.
It's kind of
We put-
awkward writing.
Come again.
Go ahead, Christina.
It still sounds just a little awkward to me. I was just pondering.
Yep.
But maybe we should put limit development to not exceed the capacity of our town's water supply. Because we're getting water from another town right now.
Yeah,
That would be more specific.
Down.
That could halt all development going forward until we get a new well or something.
That's right. And, you know, I don't know if we know enough to ask this because I'm told Easthampton has plenty of water to give us. True or not true?
Not give us, charge us.
Well, I mean, they charge us, but
Well, that's true until they need it.
Yeah.
well, that's correct.
but the
So we have a
explanation,
20-year lease, I think, right? So they could decide at the end of that 20-year lease that they don't have the surplus. It's very precarious to my mind.
Yeah.
the explanation that I got about how they could say that is that when they put in their infrastructure, they had all those mills operating and consumed a lot more water than they do now. or that they could in the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
But
And
Ken,
that's
don't
what
you,
allows them to sell.
don't you know, Ken, the answer to this? I mean, you know a lot about the town of city of Easthampton.
Well, I mean, they are developing rapidly, having, being here now for almost 8 months.
And
They
what
are-
are their, oh, excuse me.
I mean, I don't necessarily know, the negotiations that they do with Southampton with regards to the water supply or, any sort of service that the city is providing to you all. I just know that from past experience, I think, as Christina said, it's one of those things that you have to really contemplate, because there could be an opportunity for the city that you're relying on those services one day to pull, the plug on, that arrangement.
Right. Yeah.
That's just a comment.
Okay.
One of their wells could be contaminated and then they'd have to rely on their other wells. I don't, it's not something I think we should hang our hat on.
Yeah.
And
So back-
leave it the way it is.
Yeah. Just back to this wording. I mean, in order to not make it a negative, we could just say limit development to stay within the capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or just to the capacity.
Limit development to the capacity
Yeah.
rather than,
Yes, I like that better.
I think the negative gets it a little confusing there. Yeah. Okay, good. And then the last two, encourage commercial development by expanding land zoned for commercial use, and encourage non-retail commercial development by expanding land zoned for light industrial use. I think those are both self-explanatory.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So before you move on, I was quickly looking at your zoning bylaw.
Yeah.
And the town does have a cluster development.
I thought so. I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's, Cindy, it's on page 11.2. So it's section 11. It's not really titled. It's within the text because I know I've seen it before.
Okay.
Me too.
So then instead of adopt cluster development, is it something else like enforce or?
The thing is, it's, and it's a question probably for other members of the planning board, if Cindy doesn't know, it's whether or not there has been subdivision development that uses cluster, that has utilized that specific section of the bylaw. Not in many towns, that's not necessarily the case. So, you may be, and I don't know, as far as subdivision development in Southampton, if they've used that bylaw.
All right, so here I kind of know that part of the answer to that. We have, as you know, two subdivisions currently that just recently in the last year or so came before the planning board. They're both over in the Pequot Road area. Neither of them came under the cluster development guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, from what I understand, and those are the only two since I've been on the planning board. Prior to that, it was the ones up on Pleasant Street. Help me, you guys. What are the names of the ones on Pleasant Street?
On Nicholas Lane and Woodlawn.
Yeah, those two, right. And they, according to the way I'm hearing references made, they are the only ones that fell under the new zoning bylaws, which is updated 2/31/14. And I think that's when the cluster bylaw went in. So the answer is, and I can double check with the other guys, but that we have not had anybody fall under the cluster guidelines so far.
Well, and as I look at the two on Pleasant Street, I don't consider those houses particularly close together myself.
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah.
But so is this, again, I go back to the question, is it maybe not adopt since we've already adopted something? So is it implement or enforce or?
I think
encourage.
I think it would be encourage or refine
Okay.
the provisions that you have to maybe look at how, subdivision development can happen. Obviously, you want a minimal impact to the environment when you develop these housing. these houses. So I think encourage is a good word to use
Okay.
there.
But is it encouraging provisions? I'm wondering if provisions is the right word. And
Take out the words provisions.
Bylaw or encourage use of the cluster development bylaw?
No, just encourage cluster development and take out the word provisions, and then it just talks about it, requiring homes in sensitive natural, yeah, just leave it like that. How's that look?
Agreed.
Yeah, looks better. Okay. Sounds good.
Wait a minute, go back up again, Chris, go back up again. Where is it?
There.
Okay, yeah, that's good, sorry, I was just rereading it.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Okay, so we're there. So do we agree that this is all under zoning and bylaws? Is that a good title, or is this land use, or what would it be better?
I would suggest land use.
Okay.
I agree.
I was trying to kind of parallel it originally in my head anyway with the chapters of the plan, so that's fine. Okay, good. So then down into housing. Let's see if we can get through this one here. Okay, so what we had last time, we talked about, we added efficiency, or we added studio, and our big discussion last time was about the need for knowing the bedrooms and why did we care as to whether it was 1, 2, or 3 bedroom. And then Francine, you added this part, home, apartment, or condo. So that's the same as up here.
Only
Right.
shorter, that's all.
Yeah, okay. And but again, if we got rid of the bedroom part,
Yeah, then we're fine.
yeah. I mean, did we kind of agree that who cares how many bedrooms?
I agree. We don't care.
I can't think of a reason. Ken, can you think of a reason that means anything?
No.
No. Out with it.
Fine.
should it be single family? Oh, you're doing away with the old question.
I'm keeping, this is the old question.
Okay.
This is
Should
the
it
way
be
it is.
single family home rather than home?
Or single family house, because they all live,
Yes.
they're all homes.
Well, that's what, that's right, Cindy.
Or do you want to say detached?
Okay, yeah, detached might be.
Sorry, detached?
Yeah,
Detached house?
that's single, yeah.
Well,
Yes.
you normally pair them together, detached single family.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Any other choices that we want to add?
Well, the efficiency studio, how is that different from an apartment, other than obviously the size?
Uh,
I don't think it is.
Talking about, you
Well, I
know,
think they're different.
auxiliary apartments or things like that?
I think an efficiency studio, selfishly from an affordable housing perspective, you know,
Okay.
those are generally more affordable. So
Okay,
there's something to be learned there. If there's not many of those kind of units in town, promoting more of that kind of building will afford more affordability.
yeah. And what about, is there a difference with condo and townhouse? Townhome? Do we need townhouse or anything here?
Yeah. That takes in a variety, I guess, of settings.
I don't know. I don't know the terminology well enough to say,
I don't either.
should we add townhouse or not? Do we
Are
have
they-
townhouses?
Normally, I would find condo with townhouse, like condo slash.
Slash? Okay.
I mean, really, I think what you're capturing, and maybe you know in town of instances where there are attached single-family homes. So, you know, a series of
Yeah.
homes or condos in town. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Mhm.
Well, that's true. Oh, sorry.
Now, what about the I don't know what you call them, the mother-in-law apartment types that are maybe a second dwelling on the property?
That's what I was saying, auxiliary
That's
housing.
an auxiliary, yep.
Okay, I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Or you can use accessory dwelling unit.
That's it, accessory,
ADUs.
that's it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Accessory apartments, they're called.
Or accessory apartment. I think in your bylaw, you refer to
Yeah.
them as accessory apartments.
Yes,
That's probably
is
good,
a-
because if you don't know what that means, then you don't have it.
Right.
And you're not checking that box.
All right.
I'm
Okay.
thinking of that development that's down by the Norris School. That's the little community of two-family. Would those be considered apartments?
Those
I
are
don't think so.
condos.
Those are
People,
condos.
Oh,
people buy those and, then they pay a fee like
Yeah,
monthly or
okay.
quarterly to maintain them. That's a
Alright.
condo.
all right.
They're two-family units, right?
They're
Yes.
not two family. What
They're
do you
more.
mean?
They're two-family attached units.
But they're independent. They're just
Yes,
they
they
have a
are.
shared wall.
Yes, yes.
They're a shared wall, but it's not a two-family. It's
Right.
just
So is that different than a duplex, and do we need that?
It is different than a duplex. Where does it say, do we have a duplex option
No.
there?
We
No.
don't.
A duplex, I think, is a different thing. And I think the ones in the Pomeroy Village is what you're talking about. And I think in some cases, it's more than two. It's four.
Yep.
There's four together.
Well,
when I
then-
think of a duplex, there's at least one duplex that's right on the corner of Fomer and College Highway.
Right. Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, duplex implies a single owner.
Right.
Okay.
So then you'd have a renter living.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So do you want to keep it in there or not?
I wonder if it conflates things.
I think it could be, if you answer duplex, you could also answer apartment,
Right.
I would think.
That's true. Yes.
I mean, I just think of, shared housing, and maybe I'm just going back to college days, but you've got 3 or 4 people that are sharing a house that are not necessarily related, but they're, they've each got a bedroom in the house and they share a common space. So I don't know what that would be.
Well, officially that's called an SRO, a single room occupancy, but we're not necessarily a college town, so I don't know.
No, but I know that we've got places in town that we've got 3 or 4 people that are renters of sorts in one house that would have been just a normal
Really?
house dwelling.
Okay, my
Um,
ignorance.
but we could.
But wouldn't that be, well, it's not an apartment then, because they're renting a room and shared space.
Right. So maybe we could have that room. I don't know.
Single room occupancy is what you're describing.
Well, let me just put it down so we don't lose it, and then we'll come back next time. That may not be clear to people who don't know what that is either, but anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't be familiar with that.
Right,
don't
but
know.
I think if you're living in that, you know what it is. Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we'll come back. We'll just highlight it, and then we'll know. So then jumping on, based on your income level, sufficient housing options for you and your family in Southampton, yes or no? Comments? Are you satisfied? And then you've got a choice of yes. And then if you're not satisfied, choose all that apply. So I think that does lend itself to having more than one answer in my mind.
Yep.
Everybody okay so far?
Yep.
All right. And then if you were to move to another living situation within Southampton someday, what type of housing do you anticipate will meet your future needs? Choose all that apply. I'm not sure about that, but, and then, okay. And then Francine, you had a suggestion, I guess, is a separate question, if I'm right. If you were to move to another living situation, would you choose to stay in Southampton? So if you had to move,
mhm. Or if you were to either way, had or chose to.
yeah, okay. Yeah, no, word's okay then.
Right.
Okay, so that could be a separate question though. You weren't intending it to replace this one, right?
No, but it went along in that, no. You
Yeah.
can
But
make
I
it
think-
17.
If we're going to use that, the one Francine recommends, and I agree it's a good one, I'd put it before 16.
Okay. We can try to do that.
Got it.
Okay, so everybody okay with this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, then we have 17. I'll leave a little more space here. They can write the answer why. Okay. Alrighty. So then, is this a choose all that apply here, or is it choose one for 17?
I think you want to choose all that apply because depending on how far in the future you're thinking.
Okay. Okay, and then we could get rid of this last one because we've just asked it up above, right?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, good. Then this definition of affordable housing, are we okay with this, or this has to still change? This goes up, right? This red still has to get.
Chris, actually that's 2019 numbers. I forgot to change that.
Ah, okay. So that is correct then.
That's correct.
Okay. All righty. Okay. Okay, so then down to 18. I think Francine, you were just changing this.
Reversing the order.
Yeah, for, I'm just gonna change this here. Yep, okay. So that's the question here. Promote the following that could provide affordable and accessible housing options for first-time buyers, seniors, okay? So it's the strongly opposed, it's the radio button things again. Detached, duplex, townhouse condos, accessory apartments, conversion, apartment buildings, housing options for persons, and you just wanted to take out mental disabilities, Francine?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know what would be a housing accommodation for a person with mental illness. I was trying to think of that.
Why do you need physical, just with disabilities?
No.
Yep.
Fine. That's good.
Okay.
How about with special needs?
Better still.
With
Yeah, disability is a very negative thing.
special needs?
Special needs, yeah.
Or persons who require accommodations.
That's good too. That's good. That's better. That's more modern or up to date, isn't it, Francine?
Well,
Persons who require what?
Unique accommodations.
accommodations. And again, if they need one, they know what that is.
Okay, so that would be your accessible apartments, et cetera, right?
Yes.
Did I spell something wrong? Accommodation, what's wrong?
A
Double M.
double M and an S on the end.
Why do you have to have a plural, Francine?
Well, that was just multiple people. Doesn't have to be.
No.
Okay, so everybody okay with 18? Any thoughts about that?
Good.
That's good.
Alrighty, we're still under the housing category. Support for the following, your level of support for the following. So,
Should we use,
yep,
instead of elderly, how about senior?
whereabouts?
The first option, don't use the word elderly, use the word senior. Is that okay?
Yes, I like that better.
Because I'm going to be 90 and I'm not going to be elderly.
All right, we got that. Yep, and then 2, and then, so.
Ah!
I'm 58, I'm already elderly, so.
Rub it in, Jim.
Okay, Cindy, tell me here, what you have in green here was to replace the wording up above, is that right? The town.
Just bear with me a second. I got to read it because.
Okay, so what was there? The town should promote the development of affordable housing. Oh, that's a separate question, sorry.
Separate question, yeah.
There we go, let's make a space. Okay, there we go. So then this is a change. So Southampton should continue requiring and enforce the current bylaw that stipulates a certain percentage of new residential development be set aside for affordable housing.
Okay, now that's one.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to insert another one.
Okay, so this is
This is a new one.
Okay. which is Southampton should create a stronger inclusionary zoning bylaw that requires a percentage of residential development be set aside for affordable housing as when the net increase of dwelling,
Such as when the net
Such as when
increase
the
of
net
dwelling units is, and then, for example, 6 or 8. Right now, it's 10.
10.
Okay,
And that's why it's not working.
all right.
One of the
So
reasons, might be other reasons.
these two
Right,
are a little
so-
bit tied together, but
Yes, I think the first one, requiring and enforce, has it not been enforced?
Absolutely been enforced, Jim. It's just they come in under every time.
Right, so it's not that it's not enforced. So
Right.
this question to me should be thrown out and the one in green stays, although I would make it very simple. I wouldn't give the example number of units. You just want to know what the town folks feel about creating limits or
Okay.
creating incentives
Okay,
to develop affordable housing.
I like that, yeah,
so
okay.
you'd get rid of the existing wording, the old wording?
I would, because it's
It's there,
there already.
yeah,
Okay,
and it is enforced.
Yeah.
okay, but then this is then create the stronger, we talked about the inclusionary bylaw is not working, so the idea of creating a stronger one.
So for this one in the green, I would eliminate where it says, once the word such,
Yep. Okay,
I would just eliminate that last part of the sentence.
Yep, from such on, yep, I'm good with
And
that.
you have what you need. Hard one.
Could
Yeah,
we say that, I don't know.
What?
10% of any new development be set up as affordable housing?
I don't know if we want to do that, because then we're kind of writing the zoning law here in the
All right.
survey. I think we just, and again, I'm going to beg Ken's opinion here as someone who does these a lot, but what we're looking for in here is there even an appetite for changing it and looking at something, whether it's 10% or a certain number or.
All right.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, the state mandate is 10%, is it not?
yeah,
The state mandate says that if you are under 10%, then you run the risk of a 40B development coming to town.
Right.
That's the goal. It's more a goal,
That's
not
right.
necessarily a mandate.
Well, would
We
it,
said 10% of developments of 10 or more units, right? Isn't it what ours says? That's why people are building 9.
that is correct.
Essentially, yes. Right, but don't, just because they're both 10%, don't confuse the two. The 10%, Ken's correct, is a goal the state sets for each town to have, of all the units in town, 10% of them to be affordable. And if they are, and you exceed the 10%, then no developer can come in and develop affordable units against the town's bylaws or whatever. Where if you're under the 10%, someone can come in and create some affordable units and there's not a damn thing the town can do about it. I mean, essentially. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, but I think that's.
That's the gist.
Yeah.
It bypasses a lot of permitting,
Yep.
and the zoning board of appeals is
Yep.
the granting authority
so
for that.
because people may not know what the inclusionary zoning bylaw is, I mean, this whole issue of supposed to have 10, but we only have 9 because, do we have to define that anywhere, or do we just assume people are gonna figure this question out?
Well, again, I feel the purpose of this question is to gauge people's interest in pushing for affordable housing in town. You know, the 10 or the 10%, you know, that a little bit of the history there is initially my predecessors on the housing authority were working with, I believe, the planning board. And initially they set a lower number. There was some pushback. They met with some developers and they went back and forth as far as the viability of developing creating developments with, you know, a lesser number, and 10 was the number agreed upon.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with a state mandate of 10% or whatnot. It's just
Right.
and so, you know, I think the town and the housing authority went along with that because, you know, it was a negotiation. But, and this is where I'm editorializing here, I'm from the housing authority, but the proof is, you know, what are the results? And the results are we have no affordable housing from this bylaw of 10 units or more. So
So,
it's not effective.
I was just wondering about adding something, be set aside as affordable housing as required by the state or something like that.
I think because it's, as Ken's correct, it's not required by the state, it's a goal. I think
Okay.
if, like our previous questions, the more we add, the more confusing it gets.
Okay.
And
All right,
what
that's
we're
fine.
really looking for is what people's opinions are about pushing affordable housing. The details, I think we're gonna lose people or confuse the situation.
All right.
Just my
Oh,
opinion.
Chris, go back up to that one.
Yep.
Just how about instead of a percentage, how about that requires development be set aside for affordable housing?
It's a good point. I like that.
Take out a percentage of.
Yeah.
Yep,
That's good.
very good.
All right. Very good. We're getting there. All right. Just a couple more on the housing, and then we're going to take a break here and get a reading of the room here. So these towns should set aside a certain percentage of municipal land for affordable housing.
That's a scary question. Would that work? I have heard, I heard John Martin say one time, the town doesn't want to be a landlord.
True.
No, I understand, but I was thinking that if the town bought property, sold it to a developer, issued an RFP for affordable housing construction and awarded to whomever, we would basically be giving the property to the developer, who would still then end up making the same profit because they wouldn't have bought the property. They would just, the cost of the construction, which might make it more affordable.
Why don't we do that anyway? Why do we need the question?
Well, would this be tying into the idea of creating some sort of a housing trust?
Yeah.
Do we need to ask the question?
Well, I think the only reason we ask the question is because if you create, my experience from the housing authority is if you create a housing trust, somebody has to manage it. And the strong sense I and my fellow housing authority members are getting is that you don't manage a housing trust with a volunteer board that turns over every few years.
Then skip the housing trust and just do what I suggested, that if the town could give over some property that it owned for that purpose to a developer. You would not need then to establish a trust, would you? There would be they would be individually owned homes. They would not need to be, right? I'm not talking about building affordable apartments. I'm talking about affordable homes,
Right.
houses.
Basically, you're saying that the town could sell some land it owns specifically for this purpose. It would require this type of development in the sale.
No, it would not. We would, based on an RFP process, we would give the property to the developer, which would be an incentive to them because it eliminates a cost to them, which then would make the ultimate home cost more affordable. Is what I'm
Right,
trying
but
to say.
obviously, I mean, this is probably obvious to everyone, but that RFP would state that the homes they would build would have to be in the affordable range.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Well, and that's why we would go through an RFP process. We would put
Yep.
some criteria together.
But
And
I wonder if that would still have to be managed to some degree or designated as affordable. If they're designated as affordable, then, you know, when the homeowner eventually sells the home, it still has to be sold as an affordable unit 10,
Yes.
15 years down the road.
You'd have to have
They can
some
make
sort of a,
certain profit, but they cannot
Right.
sell it at market rate.
yeah, you'd have to have some sort of a condition on the deed or something, I'm sure.
Right.
All right, well, let's think about
But
that.
Chris, don't go off. Do we need the question? Why do we need to ask it? Couldn't that happen right now?
It can happen right now, so I guess the question is, do we want to gauge the political will for it to happen?
Right.
All
Yeah.
right.
I hear you.
All right, then leave it in. Sorry.
In other words, if it's there and we get a strong response, if there's weak political will for it,
Mm-hmm.
we have a tool to push back on that weak political will.
Okay. Well, and again, we can come back in the wording. There's certain percentage that may not be what you want to use again.
Right.
Should identify.
Should identify municipal land for development as affordable housing.
Yeah, make it simple.
Take off of municipal
Yep.
land for
Yeah,
development as.
for
affordable-
development of affordable housing.
Yep,
Yeah,
I like that.
All righty.
okay, good.
Good.
Simple.
All right. Two more to let's finish housing here. Southampton should be involved in helping to keep housing affordable for seniors and low-income property owners. And Francine just suggesting limited income rather than low income. Right?
Definitely.
Yeah, I like that.
All right.
Why do we have to have seniors? I mean, some seniors are pretty wealthy
Yeah,
and don't, and so why do you just drop that part about seniors? Just put keeping,
Yeah, I
Southampton
agree,
should be involved in
yes.
helping keep housing affordable
affordable.
for
Limited-
limited income property owners.
Good.
Because I
What?
think seniors sells it, frankly.
What?
So I guess I'm asking the leading question, though. I want it to be answered a certain way, and so maybe I shouldn't be commenting here as a biased person. But, you know, the optics, it sells better.
What do you mean? Say it again. Well, what sells better? If you have the word seniors in there?
Yep. To people answering the survey.
Well, you know, Jim, this is my feeling because I'm a baby boomer.
Mhm.
And, you know, a generation ago, seniors implied real fixed incomes. Baby boomers, the baby boomers I know that worked really hard, we're not going to be the fixed income seniors that my parents were. That's just my general feeling.
No, but I think we do have some that, you know, could
Right.
not afford to.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I think
Christina?
some people who are not seniors answering this question might have more empathy for if you include seniors.
Yeah, I kind of
And
think
some
that.
seniors who may not have limited income, but see the word seniors can say, aha.
Yeah.
Um,
So we could either
but
leave it the way
again, you can clearly show how I'm trying to sell this.
you
So
could either leave it affordable for seniors like we had it and
Yeah.
limited income property owners, or you could do just here a comma including seniors.
Mm.
And I like it the way, the first way,
All
for
right, let's-
seniors and limited income property owners.
All right, I'll go. And I appreciate Jim's candor.
All right. Christina, were you going to say something?
No, I think seniors should be in there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. And then this next one, the town should have a program to encourage, the word was support. Francine is recommending encourage.
I think to some people, that might imply some kind of subsidy.
Right. I think so.
Yeah.
So encourage, okay, rather than support.
Mhm.
Well, it doesn't have to be encouraged, just not support.
How different is that one from the one above?
Well, one is affordable, and first-time home buyers it may be a totally different kind of program, right?
They do imply different programs for different,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
different programs, but other than that, they're not different. It's about affordability.
But I mean,
Yeah.
there are government programs for first-time home buyers, so I would
So
leave
why
that.
should the town do it then?
Yeah, I was gonna say, are they at the
Yeah.
municipal level or is that like a state level?
Certainly federal level, there's loaning.
Federal.
Federal.
Well,
Ken, do towns that you're aware of have incentive programs for first-time home buyers? I've never heard of such a thing.
I haven't either.
Yeah, so I don't know what this question when I think about it.
This is one from before. It's not a new one.
That's not to say that there isn't one, isn't a town that may offer some sort of financial program or
So
tax
maybe
abatement program.
So maybe it's a good question to ask because, I'm biased toward one end of the continuum, but the other end of the continuum is, younger adults who maybe have student debt or whatever reason, but really could use some help. And there are programs already, but maybe there are things towns do also to encourage. We want to encourage our young people to be able to stay in town. That's one of our issues, right?
Well, it was that, and
It
People
is.
can't even afford to live here. They grew up here.
right.
Yes.
Parents can stay.
It was that. It was the teachers that work in town and the EMTs and everybody else that may work here but can't afford to buy here.
Yeah.
So
So
maybe this
we can
isn't
keep it
worded.
even if we can't do anything with it. If there's nothing, it'd be
Yeah,
interesting.
but whether it should have a program or I don't know, develop some incentives or I don't know what. But let's think about that one. Let's not take it out. Let's just think about that one, okay? And then the
Right.
last one for housing, grants or create a no-interest revolving loan fund for rehab of low and moderate income. And Francine, you were going to put limited income rather than low
In
and moderate.
place of, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And this, what comes to mind here would be more the Habitat for Humanity model to me.
Does the town receive any funding through CDBG, Community Development Block Grant?
I
I don't think so.
Not that I'm aware of.
don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
I think that is quintessential, grant programs and funding for those types of works for limited income residents or in parts of town where it's established
Okay.
that, is a low income to,
So is it the town that provides grants or does the town apply for grants or take advantage of grants or?
So yeah, I know that at PVPC, our community development department works with towns to establish and do a grant application with the Department of Housing and Community Development through the state. And sometimes the state provides funding to towns to do this type of work.
Right. Well, and plus we've got a lot of our CPC money that we've not used for housing as well.
Mhm.
So, okay, let's come back to those and think about how we want to word them. I'm going to call it right now. It's 8:38 and everybody's been very patient. I just want to show you where we are and we can quit if we want to. So mobility was the next one. And then this was the open space. I think we lost it. Where'd it go? Yeah, open space was the next one, a little bit on infrastructure. And then the last question was about whether people would be willing to have a property tax increase to do X, Y, and Z. So we had like 5 more questions on this. And that's where we were with the questionnaire as such. Let me stop that one for a second and I'm just going to pull up and just show you what we don't have. And then we'll just decide if we're going to call the meeting tonight because I think we're doing well. I think we've made a lot of headway here, but I just want to not drag us too long. So just to go down, these are the ones that we kicked out. So we've already talked about the home-based business, disability. Remember these we talked when the school one we put in? Remember these ones about town meeting and town elections? We took them out last time. We didn't think they were important in terms of voting. The historic village center, like it as it is or change it. We had questions about that. So we took it out last time. Kinds of businesses would make Southampton a better place to live. We didn't think we could do much about it, and maybe we would be encouraging, or implying something that, wasn't possible, given that we're not very actively encouraging development, and we're not going out like with the Chamber of Commerce and soliciting businesses to come to town or whatever. And then the other ones were the retail development, where it should occur, and these ones on the first-time home buyer and seniors, we've kind of incorporated already with what we've done. And then this was just the commercial development one. So we're basically, and then the traffic, a lot of this got, traffic I didn't do so much, but most of these got incorporated into this last section. So we've got a lot of it that we put in the survey that we've just been doing. So we're pretty close to an end. I think we might end up with about 25 questions, and depending on how we format it, I'd really like to be able to get this down to a couple pages so we could do a front and back. I mean, we may end up having 3 pages, but if we're going to think about mailing it, 2 would, a front and back would be wonderful if we could manage to do that, but I'm not sure how we can given the formatting. So that's kind of where we are. I think we have another separate session that we'll have to do in terms of strategy about how we want to get this administered, aside from doing a MailChimp or whatever, a SurveyMonkey thing, and how we would access mailing. I know, Cindy, you checked in with Lucy a little bit already on mailing. Want to give us a couple words on that?
She told me she sends out 2,500 to 2,500 households for the census. She gets a number of them back, non-deliverable. People have moved, etc. She admitted that she doesn't update her database when she gets them back. So we have to calculate the cost of the postage. The town does not have a bulk mail permit. That's one issue. So there's postage, there's printing, there's labor for stuffing, etc. If we got it down to 2.5 pages, then it was probably a first-class postage. If we go a whole lot larger than that, we have to have a return envelope. And we have to decide if we're going to pay the return postage. Right now, the town clerk does not have a mailbox that's specifically to the town clerk if for a drive-by. There is a silver mailbox in the parking lot of the town hall, but that's really for the treasurer.
Yeah.
We would have to get permission for it to be a drive-by, or people would have to mail it in.
Yeah.
I would like to see more exploration of MailChimp. I think we are in an era where we don't have to use paper for a vast majority of people. And I do not know how to separate out who would get the MailChimp option and who would get the print option. That's confusing to me, how we would do that.
Right.
And as far as statistics, maybe Francine can remember some of this. We did, for the open space and recreation plan, we did a questionnaire that we only got, 160 responses? Am I right, Francine? When we did that questionnaire, how many responses actually came back?
Honestly, I don't remember. I'm sorry.
It wasn't, in my opinion, an impressive amount of responses.
Right.
Emily, who works at PVPC and who was our consultant at the time, was pretty satisfied. I really would hope that we get a lot more back from work we're putting into this one.
Well, I think, just to throw those notions out there, I don't think we need to debate those tonight, because I think we probably ought to call it quits, but just food for thought for the next meeting about how we would do this. And then, just thinking of everything, all the logistics involved and collating and, all that stuff at the end as well. But those are some good pieces of information that we can think about. And then maybe, Ken, you and I can work a little bit more on some formatting with this and see how much, it's already pretty small type too. So I don't want to make it unreadable for somebody who doesn't have great eyesight either. So we got to figure how to do this. But then our dilemma of, is it per household? Is it per individual, like according to the street list? Because the street list would be, more inclusive than per household maybe, but you just don't know. I mean, that's, we don't need to mail out 6,000 either, I don't think. So, or however many are on the street list. But, all right, so with that, shall we just call it quits tonight and set I assume there's no other new business, is there, for anybody offhand?
Can I ask one question of Ken?
Sure, go for it.
Just, Ken, you were mentioning earlier about PVPC working with towns, cities, CDB with block grants. I'm just curious, does PVPC ever work with any towns that don't have a professional planner or a paid?
Sure.
Okay, so maybe different time, I'd love to know who those towns are, because again, I'm not finding a lot of precedence for volunteer boards being able to get these kind of things through.
Mhm. Okay.
I mean, they would be working, I mean, this is probably another conversation for another day, but they would be probably working with your town administrator, most likely, because that would be your town employee. That would make more sense as far as,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay, good.
setting those things
All
up.
right, so can we,
Thank you.
thanks. Can we think about a date for our next meeting? Today's the 11th. 2 weeks from now would be the 25th of May. Does that
Which is
work?
Memorial Day.
That's Memorial Day. Okay. Then the week after that would be June 1st.
Would it be impossible to do it next week? Conservation Commission's on 6 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to see us keep going on this.
Well, that's the other question too. You know, we're not having the town caucus, the town meeting. We haven't really totally decided what's happening there, right? So originally we were
We've
thinking
got a
about having
housing
it,
authority at 5:30, but we'll be done
Yeah.
by 7.
but we do have, yeah, Concom is meeting on the 18th, and that's going to be, both Brittany and I are in that one.
Yeah, I'd rather not.
Okay, next week's out because also we're doing, planning board is the 20th, the Wednesday. Thursday, it looks like is the open space and recreation plan meeting I'm hearing. I haven't remember an email on that, but so maybe the week of the Memorial Day, like Tuesday or Wednesday of that week, the 27th?
Tuesday, the 26th is select board.
Okay, how about the 27th?
That could work.
That's a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Could we do that for a change? Just try one, just so we don't lose momentum?
27th?
Let
27th?
me ask, did George suggest a better day for him because he said he wanted to come?
He did not suggest which day of the week was any better, so I could just let him know this ahead of time and maybe he can plan around it. But if we change the date, if we change it from a Monday, I think the 27th is okay with me. Anybody else? Christina, you okay with that
I think so.
for now? Okay. All right, then let's go with the 27th for now, and we will continue on. I think we made some good progress today. I like what we've got so far in general. I think we've made some good narrowing and more clarifying language choices in what we've got out here. So thank you all for your time and participation there. And can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So
So
move.
Second.
All right. Everybody in favor? I won't do it.
Aye.
I think we'll all say aye. All right, good. Thanks, guys. We'll do that.
Thanks very much.
Just for your notice too, the recordings from the meeting that Ken had done hosted and the one we did last time and this one, they are all going to Easthampton Media, so they will all be posted normally. So they have received our last two, and they should be on the Southampton channel and on our website if they're not there already.
Okay.
So if you want to go back and listen to some of the conversation and refresh your brain when you're really bored.
Scintillating viewing.
Anyway, thanks, guys. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
All right, have a good week.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night. We're closing
night.
off at 8:49.